Welcome to the official Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And my name's Nikki, bringing you the best in comics and graphic novels and updates from the festival.
Hello and welcome to Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast, episode 78. My name's Ian.
I am so going to pull faces at you again to put you off. I'm Nikki.
I'm bleeding on my chair.
Oh, don't bleed on the chair.
Oh, heck. Been for a walk
no.
and I've been attacked by a wild
stick.
Come
on, you were horrendous. You are not born to be outside. You're like definitely born to be in a town.
Nobody's born to be outside.
Yeah, no,
we're born to live in stone houses.
You are.
And never venture.
I mean, you found the
beyond
only
Asda.
stick as well, and you trod on said stick, and then said stick jumped up and stabbed you in the leg.
See? Nature's against me.
The one stick.
It was a snake stick.
You tried to chat up a sheep.
You had to go there. Right. So it's been a month since we last put an episode out.
Do you want to explain why, Ian?
Well, I don't really know why.
Come on, explain why.
I just went a bit gaga and just a bit...
I think the lockdown got to you.
Well, I'd said before that it was...
so hard to live with. I think the lockdown got to you and you became very down.
Down.
But
a lot of people.
Yeah,
are
you're
feeling
not
that way.
alone on this.
Yeah, I am normal. I'm normal.
You're normal. But no, it affects everyone differently. I got at the start.
Mm-hmm. Got caught by a stick.
Not a stick. By the stress and the anxiety at the start. And now I've been working forever. The entire thing. We're like, yeah.
Yeah, it's been weird.
I think we're getting some normality back, or coping with it better now. But I think it still lingers at the back of your mind. It still can crop up and go, but you could die from fluffy lung disease.
It took the drive away from me to go and interview somebody. That's what it did. I didn't want to. I just didn't,
You just got down about it. It's fine. It's perfect. Like you say, it's perfectly normal and it's best to talk about.
So we thought to get around that, rather than interviewing one person, we interview
85.
6. So on this episode, we have Pete Taylor. Pete Taylor's always on the episode. But today we allow him. He's on twice today.
Jesus Christ.
So we've got Pete, we've got Mark Hughes, we've got Russel Mark Olson, we've got Gustaffo Vargas, Martin Simpson and Nick Prolix. They are the Skrawllordz.
I don't know what I did there.
They're creating a comic, an anthology-style comic,
yes.
Which is coming out later in the year. So they came on to talk about that, as well as their individual projects that they're working on. Mm-hmm. And it was very civilised, considering such
who they are.
A group of raucous lads. lads. So, yeah, that'll be coming up shortly. And Mike and Pete return as well for their ongoing genre World Cup.
Is there an end to that? Or are they just going to keep going?
There is slowly. We're getting there. It's getting there. Tom's not on this episode. Again, he's in a situation of me. He's struggled to read.
No, that's fine.
Which we've both struggled to read. So we've got no book reviews this episode, but we have said next episode, you're doing...
Breaks 2, which I hadn't even realised we hadn't reviewed because it's so great, but...
And I'm doing Barking.
You're doing Barking.
Lucy Sullivan's Barking. Lucy Barking.
Oh, bless her.
Well, I've been waiting because I've been waiting to get the physical book, which we've got one on the way.
Yes.
But we've not been able to get to the person who's got our book. So we've not sorted that out. So I'm going to have to read digitally, which I'm not a fan of, but I will do. Especially that book.
I mean, it's brilliant, isn't it? Digital to take away. But some books you want to
This one feels like it's in a proper book, yeah. But yeah. I'm gonna fight the fight.
Fight the fight.
And
fight the fight.
Fight the fight.
You fight the fight. It's like
I'm gonna fight the fight of my man.
Like you did the stick.
Yeah. But we have got quite a bit to talk about. In particular, obviously.
Hang on.
Have a sip.
I'll go have a sip.
Lakes Live is looking pretty good.
It's looking funky.
So they have launched the Virtual Comics Clocktower, which is particularly impressive. Yeah. So we're gonna go on to it. So you go onto the news, and it's LICAFClocktower.com.
News. I pressed the news.
We're going to sort of go through it live on.
Here it is. Virtual Comics Clocktower launches. Press it.
Press it. Right. So it's got its own website, LICAFClocktower.com.
Yes.
And it loads up, and you're on the iPad, aren't you? Loading up or not?
Shh. Don't talk to me. I'm pressing.
What are you doing?
I don't know. Look, Oh, hang on. Got ya.
You're there now?
Yeah.
It's actually the first time I've looked at it on a computer as opposed to just on the laptop.
It's loading.
So Joe and Luke McGarry have created this website, and it's brilliant. It's got sheep that fly.
Yes.
Which wasn't loaded up. Pass me the iPad.
No, it's
Jeez.
thinking about it. It hasn't quite got there, look.
Well, this is a great tech demo. It's live recording. You know, professionals now would stop and wait, but we're not going to do that. I'll just keep talking.
I'm going to refresh the page.
So it zooms down into above the clock tower and the streets of Kendal and gives you a little brief introduction. So let's do this. The introduction is welcome to Kendal Town Hall and LICAF's live virtual comics Clocktower 2020. Each year we invite applications from creators to take part in our version of a marketplace, and this year is no exception, apart from there's no physical space this time round. We have, as always, created our comics Clocktower so it represents an exciting range of independent comic art within the UK and a sprinkling of international creators, publishers and our ever-supportive retailer, Page 45. We invite you to meet the creators, sample their work, and then, if you like, buy some comics, prints and other merchandise available here. Plus, don't forget LICAF's own store of goodies, blah, 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 blah. Big thanks to Joe Luke McGarry, based in Los Angeles, but true Brits at heart, for devising and building this website, and to Carol Tate for managing the content and taking care of our talented cohort of exhibitors. That is by Jules Tate, Festival Director. Right, have you loaded up yet? Seriously?
I've refreshed it twice.
Okay. So our iPad's having problems. So on your front page, you've got featured creators, but let's just go through a list of all the creators on the site. So essentially, this is allowing anyone who was going to be involved within the clock tower, plus some more, to show off what they were going to be selling and allow you to purchase their goods. Now, the benefit of this, which we talk about in the chat with the Skrawllordz later, is no creators have been charged to be on here. You know, so they would have paid money to sell at the clock tower,
yes,
but they've refunded that money to the creators, but they've then put them on here, which I think is
you can't
amazing.
Get any nicer than that, can
No,
you, really?
because there has been other events that have charged creators for going on a similar style of thing, which I think is just don't do it. If you can't afford, you just don't do it. You don't charge them for that. So there's quite a few to go through, so I'm not going to list them all. We'll just list a few of them. There's certain Nicole Bates.
There's not.
Who's on there?
Am I on there?
You're on there.
Please go along to the. It's rather lovely. I've got.
Let's go into your page then. So when you go onto somebody's individual page, on there it gives you a bit of bump about that person, and then down the bottom is some products of theirs, which if you click on, let's click on Moon for example.
Not Moon.
It goes
available
on
now.
Again, gives you a little bit of bump about that product, which Carol's obviously gone to the website and taken off, which is really good.
That's
but
a
then
lot of work, isn't it?
It is a lot of work.
Doing that.
Then you go to buy product, and then it takes you to that creator's website to buy that particular product, and then you can obviously go through their website and do, if you want to add other products, see what else is arranging on there.
Yeah, you can have a real good old, because that's what we did, isn't it? Because we've gone on and used it and test run it, and it works really, really well. And I went onto one creator and then went into their website and then bought something completely different to what was advertised anyway. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
You can look at art and books, so you can see the individual books that are for sale. You can look at apparel or homeware. Yeah. Or just go by creators. It's really clever website, really simple to use, and gives all creators just that facing store.
Yeah, it makes you easy to find, which is nice.
It does. It does. So we'll put a link in, but just go and have a look if you want to support any of the creators that have lost out this year for the legs not going on in its proper capacity. Then go and have a look and just support them. Yeah. And let them know where you've come from as well.
Yes, yeah.
Because the creators won't know.
Yeah, that's it.
So that is LICAFClocktower.com.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant. More news coming up as we get it on what's going on. Yes. But there has been an announcement about Mr. Mark Miller.
Yes.
It's being involved in some way, shape or form.
Yes. We don't know what yet.
It's very exciting.
Very exciting. You're very excited when you heard that name.
I am. Well, I'd love to get him obviously down to Kendal, but he's a busy man.
Yeah, very busy
Very busy man. But yeah, no, that's piqued my interest of ooh. Anyway, wait and see on that. We watched the new Harley Quinn movie the other night.
Oh, Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey and
the Emancipation of.
That's it.
Miss Harley Quinn. No, it's probably Harley Quinn.
What did you think?
I enjoyed it. It was good. It wasn't Birds of Prey, but it was
No,
good.
it wasn't Birds of Prey. It should have been featuring Birds of Prey. Yeah. Harley Quinn featuring Birds of Prey.
It's one of those ones where it started like, yeah, you know how they're going to get everyone together. It was very by the book. But no, it was enjoyable.
It was, but like I say, it didn't. There are some Birds of Prey there, but it didn't feel at all like it was a Harley Quinn movie.
It was a Harley Quinn
Simple
movie,
as that. Better than Suicide Squad? Yes. I think I said to you, I think this is how Batman universe should be.
Yes, you were saying, yeah.
It was based at a level of realism-ish.
Yeah,
there was no stupid powers. Yeah, you had Black Canary, but she wasn't throwing it out everywhere.
No, it wasn't based on her power.
No.
Her character, was it really? It was based on her as a person.
If you got Superman in that universe, he'd just be too overpowered and he wouldn't, he could destroy everybody, where Batman's villains aren't like that. They have got a sense of realism, a sense of weakness, a sense that a man who's well trained can defeat them. That's what it's got to be. And if they could just keep that going, it'd be superb.
Because it was still dark.
It was dark. It was to an extent.
It had a bit of gritty,
but it was an adult.
It wasn't too.
It was designed for adults.
It was an adult film, but it wasn't too dark. It wasn't trying to be more than it was.
No, you had some graphic content in there, but you didn't see it enough to make you feel. Bleh.
Yeah, but it wasn't a pretentious film.
No.
I'm going to sound awfully controversial now.
Go on.
But you see, kind of like with the latest Batman films, they're kind of quite pretentious, and I'm sorry.
Are you talking about Dark Knight and so forth? They're brilliant films.
But they're a bit, aren't they?
No. No.
So, I mean, it didn't take itself to... It knew what it was. It wasn't trying to be more than it was. Which I think some other films can be.
It knew the characters and what they were.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that the next Batman film, although I think it sounds amazing, isn't going to be set within that world, I don't think.
No.
But that's not a bad thing, because I think it's going to be its own universe, and hopefully they do it right and they keep it separate. I keep saying, I don't know what it is. I don't think Batman works with any other superheroes on the screen.
No.
Cartoons, yeah, but not in the real world.
No, because like you say, they're too like, I've come here with all my special abilities. And it's like, well, Batman, Gotham City, it is about the quirky, the deranged, the mad, more than the I can come down here.
Even the ones with powers like Clayface and stuff, he's still an interesting character.
Yeah,
underneath.
They're still flawed. They're still mad. It's all about madness in all its shapes and forms.
Talking to Harley Quinn, we've been watching the cartoon as well.
Yes.
You can see we've not been reading, we've just been watching. How have you found that?
It's a bit hit and miss for me. I enjoy parts of it, and then bits of it.
It's an Adult Swim style cartoon, isn't it? Very adult.
Yeah, it's definitely adult based. But yeah, it's a bit hit or miss. I enjoy it because it's funny in places, but I find it a bit. I don't know. It doesn't quite hit the spot for me.
Okay.
But I love the art style, so that's okay.
I think they've done as well as they can. If that makes sense. To try and fit it with everybody's...
What they want.
Yeah. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's a bit lighter than I thought it was going to be.
Yes, I like
I thought there was going to be a bit more
darkness
to it, or a bit more...
It is a two-dimensional cartoon.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because I think they did Poison Ivy really well, so I don't care.
Yeah.
She's so sassy.
I'm just happy to see... This man said that it's Clayface. I'm just happy to see Clayface on the screen.
Even
I want
though
to
he's
see
a
him.
thespian.
Well, that's what he is. He was an actor.
Yes, but they've really gone for it, though, haven't they?
Yeah, it was brilliant. And I want to see more Clayface. More news. Again, we're not really doing comics today. We're doing TV. For the next Flashpoint, Flash, they've announced that Michael Keaton will resume the role as Bruce Wayne.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
How amazing is that? Oh, that's just...
Very amazing. Is he going to come on with a Zimmer frame?
He was the Vulture not so long ago.
Yeah, I know, and he looked old in that.
They still need to do Batman Beyond.
Okay.
Did you ever watch the Batman Beyond cartoon?
I did.
They need to do that. Michael Keaton is now the perfect age to play Bruce Wayne.
He is the old Bruce Wayne, is he?
Yes. It'd be amazing. Get Tim Burton back to do it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good.
Oh, it would be stunning. Think about it. Oh.
I don't know, because you've said things before and then they've happened.
Well, I think Michael Keaton would be up for it. The fact he's coming back to do that.
I thought Michael Keaton listens to us. Yes, he does.
And the fact that on the set of Spider-Man, he used to go to Tom Holland, "I'm Batman," whisper in his ear as he's walking around.
Brilliant.
You know, he's up for it. He wants to. He's happy to jump in to be these characters. He's not stuck up his own backside like some
he
others
seems like a
would be.
lovely guy. Completely nuts.
Completely nuts. So that would work so well. He's just perfect. He is our Batman, in my opinion.
Yes.
Don't say Adam West. He is our Batman.
Well, no, he's not our Batman. That was a generation before, even though he is the ultimate Batman. I've just seen the dance. Shark repellent.
But no, he is.
Yes.
He is. Yeah. If only I, as I've said before, directed and ran these big multimedia companies, then.
Oh, okay.
It'd be amazing.
Just imagining what you've directed, and you've just done a very short film and an advert.
And
okay.
If you've not seen my advert, go and watch it.
Filmed by yours truly.
Yeah. Right, so we're going to leave it there today, short and sweet. But next episode, it's not confirmed, but partially confirmed. We may be speaking to somebody from Thought Bubble to see what they're doing in regards to their online show.
Because we're all in
convention.
it together.
Yes. And I think working together at the minute is so important. So yeah, hopefully as long as we can get it all planned out and sorted, that will be next episode.
Yep.
We've got the book reviews next episode.
Yes.
Definitely get it on.
Yes.
We're going to be back.
We're
back. We're back.
You just had your little...
Thank you for sticking with
crisis. It's over his crisis.
Yes,
now.
I'm over it. So enjoy the 6, then enjoy the 2.
Wow. That's a thing.
The 6 and the 2.
Right for you.
Oh God!
Can somebody fly a plane?
Yeah, I can do anything.
I believe that.
Right, let's get this rabble in order. Today we are joined by many, many comic creators. Can we have a "Here, sir," as I shout your name out? That would be Pete Taylor.
Here, sir.
Mark Hughes.
Here, sir.
Russel Mark Olson.
Present.
Gustaffo Vargas.
Hello.
Martin Simpson.
Yes, sir.
And Nick Prolix.
President.
And you are Wild Stallion, I believe. No, you are the Skrawllordz. Thank you so much for coming on. Come on, that was funny. You just completely ignored my Bill and Ted. It's completely in with the culture and everything right this second, and just completely ignored.
So relevant too.
So relevant, yeah. Right, so we'll get to the reason why you're all on here shortly, but I just want to jump into a bit of individual chats with each of you. First of all, Martin.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I didn't think you were going to go with me first.
Why? So it's the most important one first. So tell us, Martin, what have you been up to during this extra long lockdown period we've been under?
Extra long lockdown. Yeah, it's been very strange. What I've been up to, well, I've been doing this scroll thing.
We'll get to that.
I'm also working on, I work as a freelance illustrator, so I've been doing my usual editorial stuff that I do. And I'm also working on a book called Nord, which should have come out this year, but with everything being a bit crazy and cons all being cancelled, and I kind of want to take it to cons, you know. I decided that, like a lot of people, I suppose, I decided to postpone that until next year. So it's quite handy that Skrawll's coming out this year, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have anything coming out at all.
So is that completed and ready to go then?
Oh, no. No, it's my very own Winds of Winter. It's not. It's a sort of strange, ambitious mix between a illustrated storybook and a picture book and a comic book, and in a kind of picture book format. And yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good. I think it should be pretty decent. But, yeah.
Is someone actually flying a plane?
That does sound... Right, we're back again. It completely dropped out on us then, but we're back.
Weird.
We're back.
Okay.
Do we need that motorcycle to drive by again?
I think that's what caused a bloody issue. Right. So, how's it been then, Martin, working on lockdown? Has it sort of changed the way you've worked and your processing, or has it just been same old?
You know, a few of us might say the same thing. Strangely the same, because I work from home anyway. I've been freelance for 10 years nearly. So, in a weird way, it's been exactly the same. But in another weird way, when it gets to the weekend, I used to like to be able to need even to go out.
Yeah.
You know, because I work from home midweek. You know, so not being able to just not being able to go anywhere. Obviously, see family, friends. You know, when it gets to the weekend, that's when it's tough. But during the week, like Monday to Friday, it's almost exactly the same as normal for me. So a weird mix. Mix. It's a funny time. You know,
it is odd. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Right, Gustaffo.
Hello.
You've been a busy boy.
Yes, that sounds almost like naughty.
That's a different podcast for later. So you've just announced a project with our pal, Dan Abnett, because we're like best buddies and all that now. Tell us a bit about that.
Woo. Okay. Well, I'm absolutely excited about it. It's an absolute pleasure to be working with them on this. So I'm working full time right now since the beginning of actually since the end of last year. And I think first issue is coming. It's going to be released very, very soon in the beginning of July. I don't know exactly the dates or how it's going to be released. And it's going to be 6 issues in total. And it's me. I'm the main artist, but there's also 4 other artists: Valentine Delandro, Emma Vicelli, Paulina Ganicho, and Mark Harrington. So, and it's a science fiction project that is going to go together with the release of the Creator game, which is going to be an online game that looks very, very cool. So, yeah, that's basically it.
So how was that to get the call to say you're working with Dan?
That was like 7 Christmas at the same time. It was amazing. The thing is, I was planning on going full freelance in some moment this year, but basically that catch up with me even a bit faster. So I started working by the end of the year. So we got together. They offered me the lead artist on the project, and we just started working since December. So basically, in the beginning, it was creating the character design and the backgrounds and the props and everything, because it's a science fiction story, so you need a lot of heavy design work. But it's been phenomenal. It's been very, very good, because Dan he makes a very, very good story, but at the same time he leaves things a lot very open, so you can play in the same sandbox, and he gives you ideas, and you can propose 2-3 ideas, and you start playing with them, and it feels a lot with like you're creating together a project. It's not like I'm just doing that and I don't know about the writer. No, it's a very cohesive work. Yeah,
I must admit, he came across when we chatted to him just such a nice guy. He really did. Somebody who he cares about the project or whatever he's working on, not just about making money. You know, it is about creating an art form of some form. You know, so it's brilliant news.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And because since the beginning he was telling me this is going to accompany this game, but it's not going to be the typical game that has a comic, and it doesn't matter if you read it. Usually it's like you can read, or you maybe you don't read the comic. It's really not going to be important, because it will lead you only to play the game. In this case, it's not going to be this. This is not going to be the case. It's a very cool comic that if you will read it. You can play the game if you want to follow a bit more about what's going on. But it's a very good story. So, yeah, he was making sure he was bringing a very good story to the game.
Looking forward to that then. So that's coming out very soon then.
Yes.
Some point soon. Sometime soon. Okay, Mark.
Hello.
There we go. So you've been quite busy during lockdown. I've seen some imagery you've been doing on walls and buildings around Wales.
Yeah, I've been doing some painting outside, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit off at the moment because, you know, not really supposed to be going out gallivanting. So I did the big NHS piece,
which was
on
stunning.
my mate's pub, because it was all private. You know, it was on the roof of the building that you can kind of see from the street. But so there was only me and him and another friend there, but it was all like, you know, social distancing and all that, because me and the missus really been really quite a little bit freaked out by it all, so I'm very careful, you know.
I can understand that completely.
Yeah, so I've had offers for other work, you know, painting, but I've had to turn it down because I don't know, maybe I'm just not that trustworthy. I don't trust other people not to be like, oh, hang on, let me come and have a look at that, and I'll be like, hey, hang on, you have to get away from me.
Yeah.
But do you feel it's sort of opened up possibilities for the future, though? Because I thought what you did on that building was gorgeous. Really was.
Thanks.
So is that something you maybe look forward to in the future?
I've done it a lot before in the past, you know, but it's something that I always kind of dip in and out of. Yeah, I painted since I probably did my first piece when I was about 14, something like that. So oh my God, that's like 34 years ago.
Things like that.
so long ago. But I've always kind of kept my hand in with it, and it's like one of those fever things, you know. Once you have another go, you realize how much you enjoy it, and then you go back to it for a bit, but then you also, you know, after that little bit is done, you realize how much you don't enjoy it as well, and then that kind of puts it on hold for me for a bit. But I've bought, I must have bought about 80 quid's worth of paint over the last couple of weeks, so I've got a big piece lined up, but it's just when I can get out of the house and do it, you know. There's a legal wall right where we live. It's right on the beachfront, and you can just go there and paint anything you like on it within reason. You know, I suppose the council would paint over it if you painted something, I don't know, pornographic or a bit crass, you know. But the trouble with the legal wall is you can go and buy 50 quid's worth of paint and then go down there and paint it, and then 3 days later it's gone and someone else has painted over it, you know. It's kind of like there's no dibs on it. You just got to be lucky for a piece to last there, you know.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a nice little spot. It's right on the main road, so everybody can see it as they go in and out of the city. So
nothing like that up here.
No.
Yeah,
we just get the awful spray image.
Here, innit?
Awful spray image. Brilliant. And what else have you been up to during lockdown?
I've been penciling some pages. Working on Silverbeard with Pete, Silverbeard 2.
Looking forward to that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've only got a few pages left to pencil, so I'm already smashing Pete again. I've started my pages for the Skrawllordz thing that we'll get to later, I suppose.
Get to later, yeah.
And what else? Oh, yeah, me and Pete got a Kickstarter, like an interim Kickstarter coming out between Silverbeard and Silverbeard 2. So I've done a mini comic for that, which I finished my pages for, and now I've passed it over to the master, and he's in the middle of making it look amazing.
I'm sure it already looks amazing.
I'm also doing something with Matt Garvey.
Okay.
Yeah, but I speak to him all the time, but I'm not really sure whether I'm supposed to say anything. So I should have really checked. Come on, shouldn't I? Yeah.
We'll keep it quiet. We won't tell anyone.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm sure he won't mind me saying that much at least.
Promotion's always good for him, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Russell.
Yo.
I believe you've got a Kickstarter coming out tomorrow. Is that right?
Yeah, on the 30th. I don't know whether
where the Kickstarter gives you that much flexibility. I can't ever remember how it actually works every time I do one. But I'm sort of telling people that it's going to start at 6 p.m. our time, and then runs until the 18th. So it's a fairly short one. Nick and I did one about a year ago, which was like a 2-week-long campaign. It was perfect. Like sometimes these month-long campaigns can be a slog.
Yeah.
But it's called Ditch Angels. And it's the first installment of what I'm calling the Paper Noir series. I don't know if there's really a series. I'm calling it a series. We'll see what happens. But because of lockdown, I've been busy. But like normally I'll do some sort of like warm up drawing in the morning, and I've got a bit more time to do warm up drawings because I'm home all day. So I've just been doing these noir inspired images, and about 10 or 15. Well, I was planning on doing a sketchbook, like just putting out a sketchbook of like con sketches and stuff like that from the last couple of years, and put together enough of these noir sketches. I thought, well, actually, I could do a full book of them. So 40 images later, here we are. So it's about 3 weeks worth of work. It's been like wild to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things that's really interesting about lockdown is all of a sudden you have all this time to kind of test your productivity. But it's a cool little book. There's a mutual buddy of Nick and ours, Nicholas Pillay, who is a jazz historian, and he knows quite a bit about film history and noir. He's doing the intro for it to give it a bit of credibility.
You don't need credibility. Your stuff's brilliant.
But yeah, that's the newest thing that's coming up, and I think it's a bit of sort of brushing off the dust before we do the scroll thing together.
Yeah, which we'll talk about later. Superb. No, I'm looking forward to that. So that should be launching. Well, it should be launched by the time this has been released.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Right
Fingers crossed, everything goes to plan on the Kickstarter side.
The cat's just knocked all the...
Oh, God. We're having nothing but technical issues today.
It's called the cat.
They're called the cat.
They're having that on their bingo card.
And Nick.
Hello.
You there? There you go.
Hello.
You've been very busy.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
He's having it at it.
I can hear you.
Excellent. Well, we can hear you.
Great.
Superb. So you've been exceptionally busy during lockdown. Some of the work you've been doing in regards to the NHS workers who've lost their lives is amazing. What inspired you? I mean, I suppose it's a fairly silly question, really, because it's obvious what inspired you. But what inspired you in particular to start this project?
You throw me now. I thought you were going to ask me like if I've been growing my beard or. Let's not bring it down, but it just needs doing, doesn't it? To be honest, I thought like half a dozen folks would die. You know what I mean? You just assume.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that.
It keeps on going. So, yeah.
It's the only thing I can see, full stop, that's on a daily basis looking at these people who we've lost. I'm sure down the line somebody will put something together, but they're not doing it now. And your work is so important to show this on it's almost sadly a daily basis, isn't it? That we have lost these people who are just working for us to try and save people's lives. What are your intentions with it? Are you hoping to put it together or for it to be displayed anywhere? Because I feel it should be, personally.
Yeah, I don't know. I imagine that at some point, hopefully, we'll put them together and do it some sort of, thing where we can print it and raise a bit of money.
Yeah.
What that will look like, I don't know yet, but we'll see. And
what's the overall feedback been?
To be honest, there's been 2 or 3 times where family members have spotted them on Twitter or Facebook and have been in touch. It's been really kind of, affecting, just to be able to connect. And the one that was my favourite was the son of, I think his name's Michael Tan, and his son spotted it and said that his dad was a consultant, and he said his dad, he liked to do watercolours as his hobby. And he's just said, Dad would have liked to have been, made into a bit of art. So that was, I was kind of made up to hear that.
Yeah. No, like I said, I think it's just so important. And I just, if anyone's not checked out your Twitter, Instagram, whichever, go and have a look. Because it is so important to what's going on.
Yeah.
And from day one when it jumped out, I think both of us were like, wow.
It's
that's amazing.
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
it's crazy when you look at when you first started doing them, Nick. And then they started appearing one by one, and you only had them in single images on your feeds.
Yeah.
But as soon as there was enough, and you started putting them all together in blocks, that's pretty hard hitting, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you really. Well, we're not stupid. We listen to the news and read papers and what have you. You know how many people are dying, but I think that was a real. It really hit home with me when I saw the images in full. When they were all collected together.
It's the only way we're seeing faces to the names.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very much so.
To see the diversity
faces
of people.
To the numbers, I should say.
Yeah. No, it's keep it up. I'm sure it's not easy. It can probably be quite mentally challenging at times to keep going. But yeah, sadly, hopefully at some point you'll be able to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm taking a break. I took a break this weekend and drew some bounty hunters from Star Wars. So that was a change.
Right. Well, let's move on to Pete, Pete's just been busy clogging up my online storage for the podcast, to be fair, for most of lockdown.
That's all he ever does.
But we know all about what Pete's been up to, so we don't need to talk to him about that. He's not important.
I'm in everybody's doghouse.
But Pete, do you want to tell us how this group, the Skrawllordz, got together?
I think everyone knows this story, don't they?
Well, I've heard it before, but I think some people may have missed the
Me and
the story.
Sock arrived in Kendal, and we immediately became trapped on the one-way system. And as we circled round the town, time slowed, and the fashions of the people on the street, they changed to the styles of past generations. Our hire car transformed into a horse and cart and led us down cobbled streets, through muddy lanes and past murderous sheep with glowing green eyes. At last, we came upon a folly in a field, like a tiny bandstand in the shape of a pint glass. From different corners of the field, we saw other travellers approaching this strange building. It was Gustaffo, Russel, Martin, and Nick. We all assembled and could see that inside was a strangely dressed being with skin the colour of warm winter ale. Of indeterminate gender, but obviously rat-arsed. It was the beer shaman, bestower of hot-produced visions and fermenter of creativity. The next few hours blurred. There was burnt sticks, possible dancing, a fire, a blacksmith. The beer shaman at last presented us with a choice of reward. We could choose the sword, the amulet, or the bent spoon. Without thought or discussion, we all reached for the bent spoon. The beer shaman roared with laughter. So be it, Skrawllordz, they bellowed, and raised their arms to the night sky. Rain like steel rods burst from the heavens, and eerie, menacing howls filled the air. 2 savage, spectral poodles burst from the woods behind the folly and raced towards us. Frantic, we legged it. Back through the muddy lanes, back through the cobbled streets, hot, fetid breath on our backs, the snap of terrible fangs on our heels. Finally, we reached Kendal and the safety of the clock tower. Shaken and exhausted, but also invigorated. Unsure if it was a blessing or a curse, but assured that we were now and forever would be Skrawllordz.
And this is why you create comics, Pete. Obviously, that's fully true.
It's all true. It's all true.
All true.
I remember it.
I thought everyone knew that one.
So, Mark, do you want to give us the boring version?
Oh, yeah, we just drove to the pub, got steaming, and somebody said, "Oh, that would be a good idea." I can't even. Pete, you said it first, yeah.
Well, we were calling ourselves Comic House for a while because we were sharing an Airbnb, all of us.
Oh yeah, the Comic House.
And we
Well, that
realised
name's
it
been
was already
pinched,
a
yeah.
Comic
Yeah.
House. So
Yeah.
we were there sat trying to think of another name, and we're all coming up with ridiculous names, and I managed to think of the most ridiculous one.
Hey! You say ridiculous.
So, what has this grouping led to then? Before the creation of this comic, how's it affected you all and helped you in your comic creation processes?
I've got somebody I could talk to.
Yeah, it's interesting. Before we started a project, I think we set up like every single social media account you could to communicate through, and drove each other nuts by just carrying conversations on different platforms, sharing ideas. I feel like it was mostly me saying, "Hey guys, what do you think of this script?" Or "Hey guys, look at this."
Russell's needy.
I like to think of him as our leader.
Needy leader.
I definitely think without that push, we wouldn't be getting anything done, Russ. So there is that, mate.
Yeah, I think the whole idea was Russell's. The whole idea of doing the manga and everything, it was Russell's idea, I think.
No, that evolved from something that Pete and I talked about at Thought Bubble 2 years ago about doing like a newspaper.
Oh yes, yeah.
And then we'd all kind of had met and known each other through various cons, and I think it just sort of felt like the time was, time was right to put something together.
I think when we all stayed in the same place in Kendal, that definitely solidified us more as a group, rather than.
Yeah, well, we all know where the bodies are buried.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's grassing, right?
For now. Superb. So, what's the project then that you're working on?
Go on, Russell.
Yeah, go on, Russ.
All right. So it's kind of harking back to like those comic mags of old, of like Raw or Rubber Blankets. So the idea is that it's not just like an anthology comic, but it's a comic magazine, and that I don't know that I could articulate the difference between that outside of just format. But there's something more to it than just being an anthology book. So it's each of us is going to be doing a short, and from the works that we've seen already, from what people are turning in, everybody's trying to push themselves a little bit, be a bit more experimental, maybe go outside of their comfort zones a bit.
Okay.
Which is really cool. It's so much fun to see, your friends who you know are amazing artists, just try out different things and experiment. It's really cool to see. And we've also invited a few other folks to join in. We've got Rosie Packwood of Maddie's Comics is doing a short for us. Matthew Simmons of Bastard Galaxia is doing a little like zine thing for it. The great Phil Elliott is doing a comic for us. Pete, what's Jessica's surname?
Jessica Lucas. Jessica on paper.
I always want to say Jessica Fletcher.
That would be amazing.
She wasn't available. And hopefully we'll be able to sort of like push that magazine element by. I mean, one thing that we've talked about, and who knows whether this will wind up in the actual magazine, but is a way to highlight some of the stuff that we're doing outside of the world of comics, because we all kind of dip our toes in various things, as you've heard from what everybody's saying they're doing at the moment. So it'd be cool to have like a photographic expose, say like some of Sock's street art, or even to do some sort of a write up on Nick's tribute pieces. So we're still kind of figuring it out as we go, but we've got enough of a skeleton of what we're doing that we're pretty confident we'll be able to launch the book, or the Kickstarter at least, in August. But I think it'd be worthwhile if everybody pitched in a little bit about what they're doing for the magazine.
I was going to ask, we'll pull Martin on for this. Is there a theme around the stories, or have you just all been let loose? And what are you working on, Martin?
Oh, sorry, you're talking to me. Sorry,
Yep.
yeah. I really
Wake
miss
up.
seeing pictures of people. Sorry. There is no theme, no. I mean, other than to try and push yourself and do something a little bit outside your comfort zone, which is pretty easy for me because everything's outside my comfort zone. If I'm never going to be able to do it at all. But
I would also like to point out that I'm just doing my regular crap. I'm not pushing any boundaries. It's just the usual trash.
Safely in the boundaries.
Yeah.
Well,
You're pushing boundaries by not pushing boundaries. So.
That's it. Yeah.
He's always thinking outside the box.
By being inside the box.
By being in it. The last thing we expected.
Sorry, Mark. Go on, you.
So what am I doing? Mine's a 14-page story. It is fully painted, which is my usual way of doing things. But there's a sort of mix of two styles. One's quite loose, and then one is a little bit more my traditional in the box way of doing things, I suppose. But it's quite challenging because it's all one character in one location or one vehicle even. And it's called The Void? It's kind of science fiction-y, but what it's about is basically a man in isolation, dealing with being in isolation as he's trapped inside this sort of anomaly in space. So really it's about, it was written in lockdown, I painted it in lockdown, I was feeling those sorts of feelings that we were all feeling, and I wanted to do something about that, and give it a sort of a sci-fi twist to just sort of make it a little bit more universal. But you probably see when you read it that it's full of lots of thoughts I was having and friends were having and family members were having about what it was like to be in that lockdown, in that isolation, and the sort of, having that time to think more than you would perhaps normally about, your life and the universe and everything.
Yeah, no, that feeling.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like too much time, wasn't it, to think about things. So there's a lot of that in it. So mine's pretty heavy. Yeah,
intrigued. Gustaffo, what's yours all about?
In my case, I was trying to get out of my comfort zone because it's so fun to get complicated about things that I usually do. So I'm not doing science fiction. I'm doing a small story that starts with a couple and a small dog just walking on the woods, and turns little by little. You can see a magical world developing, especially around the dog. It's a 10-page story I'm doing, and I'm going to do this 90-95% analog. So I'm doing I'm drawing everything on paper, on pencils, which I usually do, but it's not going to be ink. I'm going to watercolor the whole project, which I hope is going to be okay. I finished the pencils, which look okay, but the watercolors, I've used to use watercolors, 15, 20 years ago, maybe. I haven't visited them in a while. So it's a lot of fun, but it's very spooky at the same time. Hopefully it should be fine. But it's, I don't know, it's good to get out of your depth and see what's going to happen.
That sounds interesting. That
Very,
Nikki's face lit up there. As soon as you said watercolours, that was it. She was off.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, you're very brave.
Nick, how about you?
I'm just phoning it in. I've got to use something I've already done.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not even joking.
And what's that then?
The comic.
Yeah.
It's, well, I might change my mind having listened to everyone explain. 'Cause they all put all the stuff on the WhatsApp, and I'm not going to read all their messages all the time. It's like every 2 minutes, bing, 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 bing. This is what I've been drawing. Like, fucking hell. Give it a rest. We've all got pens. But now actually hearing what they're doing, I think I might be fucked. So I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's going to be amazing.
So that's the reason to buy this whole comic, is for Nick's amazing story that's going to be held back in surprise for everyone to read.
But when he doesn't turn that in, we're going to publish his Tallywick strip.
It's always good to have a backup.
So Pete,
Yo.
What are you doing for this project then?
I think I was going to do like a science fiction tale about a character that I'd had hanging around for quite a while. But then it's partly through doing the Genre World Cup with Mike. Mm-hmm. So it was worthwhile, and it wasn't just sucking up. And it was partly when Gustaffo mentioned the drama genre. I thought, I'd not really done anything in a genre that didn't involve anything too fantastic. So I've written a story about a gang of comic-obsessed school kids who are constantly hanging around, getting on each other's nerves, and ultimately trying to work out who's the most important character in the cat food comics universe. But for one of them, and the others don't realise it, it's more important than they know.
Oh.
So there's
Master
a
of
bit
suspense.
There's drama in there.
They go down by the river and poke a dead body with a stick.
Superb.
You got it.
So you're going for Kickstarter with this, and you say around August time, roughly?
Yeah, that's right. I think sort of 1st of August. The idea is that we're still working on the model that that we were going to physically be going to lakes and have kind of a hard launch of it then. But even though we're not having the physical convention, the digital convention is still going on, so we're treating it like it's still that's the launch date for the physical book. So August, running it through the month of August, that should give us plenty of time to put it all together and get it out to print before before October-ish.
Superb. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to lead on to that then. So, Lakes Live. What are your opinions on what you've seen so far? Because quite a few.
The site looks amazing.
I'm going to say quite a few have involved, aren't they, as well? So.
Yeah, the site looks great. I love those the onomatopoeia, the biff pow pieces in between the screens. I love it. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And it seems to be working. I've already sold some stuff off of it, so I'm
Me
pleased.
too.
Yeah,
excellent.
As soon as it came online, I got some stuff.
Nikki's like, so have I.
Brilliant.
No, it does. I think they've done. The minute they said they're going to do this, they always aim to have something for you guys who would be normally selling, and the fact they're doing it for free, I thought was just stunning.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's the thought that this can then run every year. So if you have a table up at the lakes, you've got that part of it as well, which I think is superb.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Brilliant.
So when the Lakes and obviously Thought Bubble's doing the same said they were going to do an online con, was it something you were immediately excited about, or was it a bit more? Yeah.
I think we were probably just a little bit disappointed that we weren't going to get to meet up.
Yeah.
I mean, Lakes is kind of like the Skrawllord's spiritual home. So, like
It definitely is.
it's we're there just as much for the comics as we are to see each other.
Yeah.
So that's it'd be a lie to say that wasn't a little bit disappointing, but that the spirit is continuing, and that we've got to be inventive, right? We can't just sort of sit on our laurels and wait for this all to pass and expect the industry to still be around, particularly the indie industry. Like we've got to use what the opportunities we're given and do the best we can with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, superb. And I think it's exciting. What, as I say, the Lakes and Thought Bubble. We've not really seen what they're doing yet, but they've got something lined up.
Yes.
Just the fact that the two big conventions have got plans for this year in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It just shows how strong the industry is and how
absolutely
driven the industry is. Probably the best way of looking at it. It's superb. Right.
Yeah. It's got to be a kick in the seat for them financially, not being able to do it, So taking the time out to do an online one for free, especially with the Lakes, is incredible. That's proper dedication, isn't it?
So have you
to the medium and the creators,
So you say you're going to launch your comic on that weekend. Have you got any plans, any thoughts of what you might do?
Get pissed.
24-hour Skype.
On Skype,
Oh yeah.
Oh, jeez, that'd be.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know whether there's room. I mean, I know that it sounded like Judith and the other organizers already have the plates pretty well occupied by food. That's a metaphor I've just made up, but I'm running with it. They've already got the chafing dishes lit. But I don't know. Maybe there's a way we can sort of finagle a bit of airspace and say, hey, can we do like a sort of a round table physical launch, something like this, where basically just Nick slags us off for 20 minutes. We talk about the book.
There's always a podcast you could speak to who may be able to get their feet in the door for stuff like that.
While you're here.
Watch this space, people. Watch this space. Superb. Right, I'm just going to run down. I want you to give shout out of the best place to find your wares online, if you would be so kind. So, Mark?
You could go to my, theartofsock.com. Head there.
Yeah. Russell? Sorry, go on.
No, go on you. Go on, Russ.
It's Russel Mark Olson at .bigcartel.com.
Superb. Gustaffo?
Yes, Google Gustaffo Vargas with double F and good luck.
We'll put links in the show. Martin?
Mine's martinsillustration.com. If you go there, you can find Twitter and my shop and everything.
Nick?
Nick Prolix on Twitter, Nick Prolix on Instagram.
Superb. And obviously, Pete will give you the chance to shout out here, even though you do every episode. Go for it.
Catfoodcomics.com.
Awesome.
Been recently reinvigorated.
Oh.
Lots of information on your favourite Cat Food Comics characters, free comics, and a link to the shop. Buy now.
That's how you do it.
Oh, it's got the advert, everything
That's
there.
how you do it.
There should be some jingle sounds with that one.
Well, thank you so much for your time, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
It's a shame we won't see you this year, but I'm sure we'll meet up next year at some convention. One, if not the Lakes, another one at least, yeah. If not before, so. And good luck with the launch of the Kickstarter in August-ish.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Thanks so much for having us on.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we look forward to that release. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Love you, Lord.
Slow detective losing
How do? Welcome to Mutter Downs, the yakking endlessly about comics section of the podcast. I'm Pete Taylor. I'm the chronicler of Silverbeard. Online I trade as This Man, This Pete. And as always, the mutterings will be supplied by...
Mike Williams, comic obsessive and nerf herder. I generally spout stuff on Twitter at CthulhuPunk.
I think that's my favourite so far. Well, once again, here we are, still in isolation, both of us. I mean, you haven't gone anywhere, no matter how many people tell you that lockdown has eased. Probably
no,
for both of us, me being in a different country from what most people see as having the rules that they need to follow, and you shielding. So
yeah, I'm still shielding. Kidney transplant means that I've got almost no immune system, so all my friends are all getting together to do this, that, and the other. In small groups, I'll admit, but yeah, I'm still completely out of it. So I'm stuck reading comics and playing D&D online, I'm afraid. That is my life.
It's been, I think I'm in a reverse lockdown. I was, nothing much changed at the beginning, and the girls were all busy with work, but the last couple of weeks have been tougher than the first few. I don't know why. I think people, you get used to it, and you get used to the things that you can do. So I am the IT department of the house, and instead of being 9 to 5, it's 24/7 sort of really now.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time I do all right, but I did manage to, it was actually, funnily enough, it was last time I was talking to the Skrawllordz, not the interview that's on today, but we had a record-setting production meeting with talking about what is being talked about really on the interview today with the Skrawllordz, and it beat out our best Mutter Downs, I think, by a fair way. I think we were talking for about 3.5 hours.
This will not stand, Pete.
It was great. I had a cracking time, but immediately after the meeting realised that I'd missed and completely forgotten about a relative's Zoom party that I was supposed to be attending, and I ended up not being able to help one of my daughters go do one of hers. So straight after the meeting, it was a slight meltdown, and I was in the doghouse regardless of it being Father's Day that weekend. So I've been in and out according to what technological problems I can fix or can't. So yeah, it's been a bit of an up and down lockdown, just up and down lockdown.
It hasn't been a great couple of weeks either for me. Work's got really busy. I work in IT, and I work from home anyway. And wow, yeah, pulled a 2 a.m. in the morning job the other night, and I'm getting too old to recover that quickly from doing like a 22-hour shift. So yeah, it's been tough. But yeah, it's going to be interesting in the coming weeks as parts of England anyway are starting to become a little bit freer. But it's weird when you can't even go out and see the difference.
Yeah.
So
I know.
Very, very strange.
No, I'm with you on the all-nighters. You know, back in the day, it was just something you could be expected to be able to do. And I remember
shrug it off the next day, easy. Yeah.
I remember doing the last stage of Silverbeard was the colouring, and I can remember being up till about, I think it was 4 a.m, doing, you know, as much as I could. I was running out of time to get it finished before the lakes, but I was purposefully not sort of I was trying not to pay attention because I didn't want to do any shortcuts and stuff. But I did. I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning, and I remember being kind of slightly shocked when I got up the next day and came down and saw what I'd been doing the night before. At first there was a kind of like, oh, I don't know if I like that. But yeah, it came out in the end. But it was a killer. Could not
couldn't do an all-nighter anymore, definitely.
So kind of a bit of a weird episode, this one. I guess really, it's before we start the quarterfinals with the comic genre World Cup that we've been doing. We've just finished all the round one playoffs. And I guess this is just going to be a quick roundup of the results so far.
Yeah, I think we got a bit of feedback. I think we've learnt a few things along the way, haven't we? And we've come across various titles because of the research we were doing. I think there's a few that have come out that are relevant, and there's even, I think, a little bit of crossover with some members of my family who saw the books constantly on my desk, and that has now been passed. So those books have got dispersed around the house.
Right, okay. I guess it's probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode as well, mainly because, well, you're a massive part of this episode already, with the Skrawllordz Collective being interviewed by Ian and Nikki. So, yeah, we need to keep your presence to a minimum, I think.
I was quite quiet, I think, for once. You know, when you've got such a bombastic group of creators in one room.
So the quarters start next episode, where we'll be seeing crime versus romance, and with the help of Tom Stewart, who's a contributor to this podcast.
Mainly in the hopes that we can avoid his lawyer's bill by getting him on the podcast.
Yes,
himself. Yeah. So that'll be fun. And then each quarterfinal after that, we're going to have a different pundit to discuss each of the different rounds of the quarterfinals. And then we're going to organise an online vote at the results at the end of the quarterfinals, so that it won't be us, but the listeners that are determining the result of the Genre World Cup.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be interesting, actually. We haven't figured out the final details of that, but I'm sure it's going to be over Twitter or Facebook or both, or something similar, isn't it? All through the website.
Yeah, we can handle it. Email. Pigeons. Yeah, whatever you like.
Cool. So, where did it all begin?
Yeah, so long ago, Mike.
I know it is, isn't it? So the first match we played was the Western genre versus the crime genre. We had some feedback off that as well, didn't we? Probably quite a lot, actually. Crime won, but boy, there was definitely more fans for Western out there, wasn't there?
Yes. We were slightly worried, weren't we, that there was an outpouring of scorn, shall we say, poured on.
Yeah, there was a little bit. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I still do. I mean, I've read a lot of Western, and some of the ones that were, I think some of the things we found about this genre World Cup is how easily it is for one person to consider a genre as being more primary in a book than what you might see it as. Because I remember Tom put forward that American Vampire, was an example of a comic Western story.
Yes, yeah.
And, that it's quite subjective of which side you will firmly place it, and it's I wouldn't call it a Western myself.
I know that I went. I mean, the things I chose, I'm looking at them now. We each gave, for each one of these genres, we all had basically 5 choices to put forward as an example, didn't we? Which we play off against each other. 4 or 5 are clearly sci-fi and one's horror. It's just that I always see them as Western, because the whole point is it's a sci-fi Western. I didn't really go into true, absolute core Western comics from the 50s as my choices. And I think that's where I think there's a lot more fans of those kind of comics out there still than I actually thought, I have to admit. Because this is, funnily enough, how we got to know Richard, isn't it? is a friend of the show.
Yeah.
Richard Sheaf, who does a great little blog online, and he basically supplied an article for us all about 50s titles, with some brilliant photos from the Miller Western comic books, sort of like a reference book at the time of all their Western titles. And we put that straight up on the Comic Podcast website as well. And that was that shows a bit of passion that somebody not only wants to sort of be annoyed at you for actually dismissing Western so early on in the World Cup, but to actually go and write an article for you. It's a little bit of dedication, isn't it?
Yeah, you need to school those. I got to school those podcast boys. Yeah, I mean, it's funny enough. There are lots of these books that made me go back and rifle through my shelf, and some you would pull off and definitely lean against the bookshelf and start to read. But it's difficult not to pick up a Parker or a Criminal and absolutely not get pulled back into those books, especially with the two gorgeous little novellas that have been produced over the last couple of years with
Pete's now looking backwards at his bookshelf, I think.
Yeah, maybe headphones. My heroes have always been Junkies and Bad Weekend. They're just perfect little novellas. I mean, that's why I was leaning over looking, because since I bought it, my heroes have always been Junkies. It hasn't actually got to the shelf. It's just stayed on my desk.
Right.
Partly due to the colouring. I think it was one of the first books that Jacob Phillips came on board and started to take over the colouring, and it's wonderfully atmospheric and gorgeous. But having the Parker books on my desk meant that they've now been half-inched by my daughter Daisy, and she's working her way through Parker, which it's brilliant to see both my daughters picking up some of other genres than they're used to. Daisy's a massive manga reader. She's a big fan of particularly fantasy and Headlopper. But I don't know if she's read much crime, to be honest. So it was really interesting, and she's absolutely loving them. She's devouring them. They're quick reads, but she's absolutely immersing herself in it. She loves Darwin Cook. Before this, I think she'd seen some of his superhero stuff, but those books, amazing.
There was one you mentioned as well, Crowded, which I still haven't, but I want to read. So that was another one on my list. I can't remember whether I mentioned it in the episode, but I think the episode I did before we started doing this together, I did a review of The Last Days of American Crime.
Is that the Bendis one?
The Rick Remender.
Oh, you did. I remember you mentioning it. Yeah.
Well, since then, I don't know if you know. I thought it was going to be a series actually, but it came on as a single film on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah, it was okay actually. I quite. Edgar Ramirez plays the title character, which he's really good, but it's supposed to be an old dude.
Right.
It's a good story, and there's a reason why it's The Last Days of American Crime. Crime will cease in a few days' time due to plot point. Okay. So they have
Insert
to pull off
plot point here.
So they have to pull off a big heist before other plot point. Okay. They messed around with it a little bit. It's a good film, but in order to get as much of the book in, it's well over 2 hour film, which is unusual for a comic adaptation. It's definitely worth it. It's got so much right and so much they changed. It's kind of hard to quantify. As a film, yeah, it's definitely worth watching. As a comic book adaptation, it's good, not the best. I think they should have stuck with some of the stuff from the book. But anyway, yeah, no, it's just I'd mentioned that. It was
yeah.
No.
Oh no, that sounds good. I'm going to look out for that. So yeah, I mean, it didn't make me go back and read more westerns, funnily enough, but I absolutely did go back and devour more crime. I actually bought the latest James Ellroy book.
Oh right.
And it's terrible because as a family, everybody reads. Not just everyone does read comics to a certain extent, but everyone reads as well. But my book consumption has seriously gone down just because there's so many comics, and having more indie comics to pick up because you either get some sent in or you hear them on other podcasts. The Awesome Comic podcast recommendations is absolutely killer for my wallet.
No, they are as well. Yes.
It really is. I'm not complaining, boys. Absolutely not. Thank you. Keep up the stellar work. But that pile of comics is not getting any smaller. I told my missus, don't buy me any comics for my birthday. Just I've got too much to read. But for Father's Day, I got the latest James Ellroy, and it's that was partly I did drop hints for that because it really felt time to get back. I'd heard good reviews about the latest one. I think This Storm. I think some of his last trilogy didn't end perhaps as strongly as his earlier LA Quartet. So I did have friends who said, not to bother with the last one of that. And I think by dropping off, I didn't jump back into any of his others. But I'm looking forward to reading a proper book with no pictures.
No, you're right. I know. I used to before Christmas, it was on average I have at least 2 books on the go. But yeah, reading time's gone down, which is really strange. In comic time's gone really high right now. Yeah, I guess doing research for this is enough to make that happen, I suppose, as well.
There are some, aren't there? Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, if we go on to the next one now, which is sport versus romance, I had absolutely probably zero reading and research. Well, I mean, research to do was very difficult because I had zero interest in the genre and I found it very, very difficult. I mean, I did end up, really cheating with Love and Rockets and Woe Nelly to a certain extent. Well, actually, probably all of them I cheated with. But, that was almost the easiest in one way because I wasn't rereading, and the hardest because I really didn't have a clue what to include.
Yeah. I'd have struggled as much as you on sport, honestly. I did come up. There was a few that came to my mind, wasn't there, at the end? I think I said Harlem Heroes.
I was thinking, yeah.
There was another 2000 AD one as well. I'm sure was a sporty one.
There was I think a summer special, 2000 AD summer special that starred Judge Dredd, that was drawn by John Byrne. And I was a massive John Byrne at the time. I absolutely couldn't believe that John Byrne was drawing Judge Dredd. But that was another sports story. That was some kind of, I don't know if it was an American football. I remember it as being some sort of American football with a twist sort of story. Mm-hmm. But I don't suppose that really counts.
It's really hard. There's not really true sports titles. I know. Yeah, it's one of those. It's kind of a background element, isn't it?
I think if we had longer than a couple of weeks to put it together, you'd be able to, pull my manga reference. I've got a few, actual reference books on manga, and I know that
was the key. There's manga ones about netball.
Yeah,
I have read them in desperation. Okay.
Yeah.
And the only other thing, because you said Love and Rockets, okay, but there's a bit of wrestling. Wasn't Is there roller derby in that?
In Woe Nelly, the one I mentioned, is wrestling.
Yeah, but in Love and Rockets, isn't there roller derby at some point?
Yeah.
Like,
yes, isn't it? Frogface's sister or girlfriend.
One of them's into it.
Yeah,
well,
later on.
Gary Erskine did Roller Girls, didn't he? As well.
Yeah.
That's the one.
There's one called, is it Ringside as well? There's an Image title. There's another wrestling one called Ringside. No.
We drew this. We kind of drew who took what randomly, and I think you got a couple of worse ones than I did.
Do you know? Yeah, in the end, I don't think it wasn't too bad, and I wouldn't have found out about Boom Boom Brannigan without doing the research on sport. But because the next one that was horror versus reality, that one was a lot more fun. And I remember when we were recording, I actually brought all my. I think I was recording in the upstairs bedroom. Whether that was after a particularly annoying, buzzy episode, I can't remember, or if the workroom was busy. But I remember doing the recording with this massive pile of books around me, because once I'd got started, I think I was a bit worried that having a kind of reality genre was going to be quite stifling. But once you realise how many books are, historically based, really, I just started pulling them off my shelf. I didn't realise I quite had so many, and it's definitely, I suppose you realise once you start to look how many or what you are attracted to and not really realised it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you picked it up. I mean, I'm glad with what you did with that as a genre, because you got in understanding comics, which is still something I've never read. If we ever get around to doing a big swap at some point of stuff, I might grab a copy of that, or I might just grab one myself anyway, because it seems to be the reference book. And I think I really do need to read that, don't I?
It's incredibly interesting. There's something always about. I know it got kind of criticised, I think, for being a slight over-analysis, and he certainly goes back in later volumes in the series, and I suppose in a little way, like we're doing now, he brings up certain criticisms that from the earlier book and redefines aspects that people disagreed with. So that was quite nice as well. But it's amazing when you look at something as forensically as he does in that. There's guaranteed to be something you've not quite considered.
I mean, feedback-wise, you got a bit of love over your reality, and that was reality versus horror, wasn't it? Which I did.
Yeah.
Now, no, I didn't really get any feedback about horror. I don't know whether that means I did an okayish job at least describing the history of horror, but choice-wise, I didn't really get a lot of feedback on that. Funnily enough, my number one was From Hell, which did actually spur us to rewatch that. We actually sat down with a bottle of wine and watched From Hell, which is not the most romantic night in, but it's a damn fine watch as well. And I'd spent the day rereading the book, which is chunky. Funnily enough, I only got a copy of it because Ian gave one to me. I don't know whether it was one he got sent but he sort of checked me. He said, "You haven't got a copy of this?" I went, "No, I haven't actually. I think I've bought it. I think I bought it my sister, and I've bought it somebody else, but I've never actually had a copy of it myself." So I was quite chuffed at that. But it's a hell of a read. It's a chunky thing.
It is. It's
that was a good afternoon gone.
Well, it's another example, I think, of one of those weird crossovers that we had. In the same way that we had Love and Rockets mentioned in sport and romance, I'm pretty sure I mentioned Love and Rockets. It wasn't one of my final five, but I mentioned it as part of the reality because there's a lot of history of London in From Hell.
There is.
So there's a lot of fiction in terms of him obviously deciding and exploring a potential identity for Jack the Ripper, but his ability to tie in the growth of evil into the actual building of London is, it's phenomenal. I mean, and that's the bit that I always remember and was surprised about, I think, and didn't realise. And then to actually, when I go back, I think that is a bigger draw for me now than the Jack the Ripper storyline. It's when he starts to weave this incredible evil structure that's existed, and people get affected by being there and perhaps corrupted. So it's a funny little crossover though that happened, more than once. Horror definitely seems to be on the rise, and whether it will continue to, given the current circumstances, is probably a fair bet. I think that's,
it's a funny reaction, isn't it? I mean, it's very telling. In the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, did you see that some of the trending on Netflix was Contagion?
Yep.
And what was the
Outbreak?
Older Dustin Hoffman Outbreak. Yeah.
I know.
I mean, that is weird, isn't it?
It just goes to show. It's a weird
reaction.
Yeah. I did that. You couldn't have named two films that I would have, watched. Would have been lower on my list than those two.
Exactly.
We immediately at the beginning of lockdown went into a family favourite kind of, cozy. What can we watch that we know we're absolutely going to love?
Yeah, well, I think we did for a bit as well. Yes,
it's a bit like we always say to the girls when they're ill. Like watch a film you used to love when you were little or something like that. It's that kind of like, it was the exact opposite. I didn't want any reality. So, it's Princess Bride, or I don't know. Or I think we obviously probably a lot of people. Star Wars, didn't do the prequels, but we did all the rest. So it's funny.
The grim dystopian future. Just look out the window.
Right.
We relied heavily on sort of nice fantasy films as well for a long time.
One last thing about horror, funnily enough, I got a lot of missives from fellow Skrawllord, Gustaffo, and he sent us a brilliant. I haven't put this on the website. I put his earlier one about a book called Fantastic Jungle, or Mysterious Jungle, I think it was. And he sent us a big, long profile of his favourite Argentinian writer, Carlos Trio. And because he'd worked in all of the different genres, and he does a breakdown on some of the ones about a character that was involved in the post-conquest in early colonial cities. So some quite historic storylines that fitted in with the reality genre, and stories of a gaucho in Firo magazine. But after him sending this great little profile about one of his favourite writers, I ended up finally sorting out my shelves, which had kind of got to that point where, when bookshelves kind of get like 2 books deep.
Yeah.
So you've covered up your layer of books.
Every bookshelf in the house right now.
I mean, everybody's seen the way everybody stacks their books now. It's kind of like becoming this art form. If you watch the Commode and Mayo sort of show where they and the Mark Kermode is turning his kind of books into this brilliant kind of Rubik's cube of sort of stacking and presenting. And well, I finally sorted mine out. I'd blow me if I didn't come across a book by Carlos Trio. It's a book called Vampire Boy, drawn by Eduardo Risso, which is why I obviously picked it up. Massive Eduardo Risso fan. And yes, kind of. There's a historical sort of background to the vampires, and I haven't reread it yet, but it's quite interesting just to see the slight difference in Risso's artwork as well. But obviously, it's going to be great to kind of read some translated trio for myself. And I promised that Gustaffo hasn't read it either. That was Dark Horse from about 2010, but probably earlier in its original South American publisher. But also, since Carlos Trio was brought to my attention, I've noticed that there's another book, I think it might be published by Boom, called Borderline, and that's more of a kind of, I think, post-apocalypse sci-fi book, again by Trio and Risso, and that's been on my wish list on Comixology for a while. So once I've read Vampire Boy, I think I'm going to go and finally make the dive. It's a fair few books as well. I think it's about 3.
I think we've talked about this before, though. You find something you like, it's worth delving back to see what else they've done. Constantly, I find that I've actually got stuff by them. I just didn't realise it was them. I read it 10, 15 years ago. Name didn't ring a bell.
Totally.
And I think it's a really good way to, if you want to broaden comic reading horizons, that's the way to do it. Find something you like, dig into more that anybody connected to that has done. And it just opens up a whole pathway of stuff, I find.
Yeah,
absolutely love doing that.
It's the equivalent of watching a movie, isn't it? And you've watched it for the umpteenth time, and because you've become aware of somebody in between, suddenly it's like, oh, that's the guy. We're rewatching The Wire. I didn't know that one of the kids that's running drugs in the pit, at the time I last watched it, he wasn't a star, I suppose, but Michael B. Jordan is one of.
Is he?
He's one of the kids working in the pit.
Oh, right.
You know, he looks.
The Wire a while ago.
Yeah, well, we didn't. We're watching it again with the girls. I think we watched it. I mean, it must have finished about 2006, maybe.
Yeah, this was I had to watch this on my own.
Oh, okay. It was the first
no
box
interest
set
from any other corner of the household. So
right. It was the first box set that me and Non sort of like got into as a kind of when I don't know, box sets became a thing, I suppose. But we were getting the DVDs through the post at the time. It was that long ago. But yeah, watching it with the girls, they were like, "Isn't that the Human Torch from that rubbish Fantastic Four movie?" I was like, "Oh God, Killraven from Killmonger from Black Panther." So yeah, he's grown up a lot since then, I tell you. But yeah, it's definitely that equivalent. Suddenly you pick up a book, and that name didn't mean anything to you when you read it the first time. But especially doing all of this kind of stuff, it definitely comes back later on to get more knowledge. Oh, before we move on, actually, one thing I did pick up, a reality book. One of the things about these reality books, I think, because I was talking about a book called Sew Buttons, which is written by a guy he had worked for Marvel as an intern, and he's now working in film production, I think, possibly as an editor. Sew Buttons. There's a lot of autobiographical comics as part of the reality genre, and I did pick up a book called Holler, Holler. It's the 1990s. In the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, 4 friends form a garage band while navigating the ups and downs of teenage existence. And that's by Jeremy Massey, and it's 79p.
Right.
Yeah, really good. Lovely, brushy artwork. I think possibly 3 or 4 stories about just being young, being in a band, having to put up with certain pressure from school or religious groups in this particular area. And because I was just having a look in different genres and different bits on Comixology. Yeah, great. Really enjoyed it.
So the next one was Post-Apocalypse versus TV adaptations. And I know you kind of struggled a little bit with that, and you went on the way you went with it.
You say struggled, Mike. I cheated, didn't I?
Cheated. Okay.
Comics. I mean,
it was interesting, but I quite liked it actually.
I was kind of thinking. I was in lockdown mode. I was thinking, part of this was recommendations, and I thought, I'll try something different, and I'll do actual TV programs instead of comics, which we're supposed to be yakking about. So that totally, whenever we're in the penalty shootout, I just kept thinking, yeah, but this isn't a comic. I'm going to vote for the comic.
Kind of gave Post-Apocalypse a free pass, I guess. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned End of the Effing World, which, funnily enough, I ended up having a bit of a conversation with Tom about. Because he knew it from, I can't remember what he said now. Was it from E4? But it was actually on Channel 4 originally, and now it's on Netflix. And it was one of those.
Big gap in production, wasn't there?
He was saying, I mean, it was. They look quite older in the second series because it kind of went through this loop of wasn't watched that much. Stick it onto E4. Oh, great, new audience, and then eventually Netflix got it in. And he obviously was aware of the original source material as well for that. But you did Lock and Key. Now I've read a little bit of Lock and Key, and I'd watched the whole Netflix series, and I loved the Netflix series, and I loved what I'd read of Lock and Key. Just after you did this, did you know there was a Humble bundle on Lock and Key?
No.
Everything.
Cool.
It was one of those. It had a really good. I think it was one of those that had one of those charities for booksellers because of lockdown. Right. It was one of those rare ones, a bit like the Walking Dead one was. Yeah.
Right. Specific.
Yeah. So I'm just about to start going through those. But my sister, really into Lock and Key comic, finally she finished it. And she finally got herself the last one, I think, of Lock and Key she's waiting for. Watched the series, didn't like it.
Oh, really?
So I kind of knew that the comic is completely up my alley. Okay, I love it, and we really enjoyed that. Lock and Key was a proper we looked forward to sitting down at night to. Yeah. We went through that box set. So I'm hoping I'll have a different experience because I know I'm going to like the comic book, and I think. It's one of those where if you'd have read the comic book from start to end, maybe I can see it just doesn't compare to... But it never will if you love the source material. That's the problem with TV adaptations. So I get it. I completely get it. We are going to watch Lock and Key again because there is going to be a second season. But you mentioned Umbrella Academy. We are restarting that very shortly because Umbrella Academy second season is next month.
Right.
After.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know.
So you got to kind of convert yourself from the comic back into the TV mode with that one.
Yeah.
Because it's so different. Well, so we are going to rewatch it again.
Like you're saying, with Lock and Key, I have read, I think possibly I've definitely read the first. I can't remember if I read any more than the first, but I think it does.
The second one I read as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a big difference in where you come into some of these stories sometimes, and what your first interaction with them was. Because we did see the trailer for Lock and Key, and we me and Don weren't impressed by the trailer at all. And I think if it wasn't for Nancy wanting to watch it, we probably wouldn't have, and we would have missed out because we really enjoyed it once we got there. But I think just the high level of visuals they put in there, and I think there's an element of that the character designs are quite different as well. I think that people can, and I know for some people, the biggest things my daughters would complain about whenever they went to an adaptation of a favourite book was how different people looked, or they were supposed to have, this hair and they didn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, we got The Boys coming back as well as another TV comic adaptation. I think that's September they've announced, haven't they? So
yeah, actually, I'm really glad they've put because I didn't have Amazon Prime. They've put the whole box set of the first season out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
cool.
So
that'll have extras as well, probably.
Hoping, because I've not seen it, so I'm waiting. That is a next gift. So on the post-apocalypse front as well, I did actually mention Le Trans Personnage, which is Snowpiercer. Mm-hmm. That started a series on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
prescient.
Interesting, because they saw that as quite a big... I mean, funnily enough, Netflix was the only place in this country that showed the original film of Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
It was so hard to get hold of. I mentioned that at the time. I was trying to buy the DVD for years. But they did it as one of these. They released an episode a week.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I've held back. I'm just going to go and look after this to see whether or not it's finished yet. Because when we start it, we're going to binge it.
Yeah, totally.
It looks interesting. I did watch the trailer. It's quite different from the film. That's quite different from the book. But I just love the concept of it. So I know I like it.
Totally.
I think you mentioned you watched Mad Max Fury Road. I mentioned the comics, didn't I, for Post-Apocalypse?
Yes, we had a rewatch for Father's Day. I was allowed the choice of movies for Father's Day. It's kind of we give over the weekend, a weekend closest to whether it's your birthday or Mother's Day or Father's Day. And I decided to go lowbrow, highbrow with my choices this year. So my lowbrow was Mad Max Fury Road, which is not particularly lowbrow, it's bloody brilliant. And it really did still hold up. Absolutely adored that. And then my highbrow was Yojimbo, Akira Kurosawa.
Yeah.
The forerunner of Fistful of Dollars. So that was great. And that really, all it takes sometimes is watching one movie like that. And I was kind of like, I just want to watch the rest now, just fall into that genre.
Didn't get a lot of feedback around Post-Apocalypse generally. I reread Pride of Baghdad that I actually had as one of my choices, and I regret not putting that higher.
Yeah, it does stand up, doesn't it?
And it's one of those where it could have easily gone into sort of reality because it's based on true events. It's just that it's obviously from the viewpoint of the lions. The lions that were released from Baghdad Zoo during the bombing. It's a true event, and they've taken poetic license, but it's a powerful book, that. Right, moving on. War versus sci-fi. Okay, yes, we did get some feedback from this. I think both of us got different feedbacks off this. Sci-fi is one of those. It's the same as fantasy and superhero. It's just too big, isn't it?
Yeah.
As a genre, it's massive. I think I did quite good on feedback on war, purely because they're very specific titles. I think that I chose, like Charlie's War, and then Commando as well. Comics. I mean, they're just I think there was a lot of nostalgia, I think, with some of the stuff I chose. And I cheated completely by choosing Last Day in Vietnam just to get your vote on that, because it's a Kirby. No, I'm not apologising for that. But your sci-fi choices, actually, again, I couldn't obviously get hold of anything, but I did do a lot of looking up about American Flag just to really get into that, and I think I would like to get some collected works. And then Xenozoic Tales was something that I realised I knew, but I didn't know, because I didn't realise that was dinosaurs and Cadillacs and stuff like that, which is again a little bit of nostalgia for me. So it was nice there were some good titles, I thought, that both was brought out there.
Funny enough, American Flag was stolen in the same way that Parker was. Once I'd got that off my shelf, there are some books I'll buy, in whatever format, and repeatedly. So Hellboy, I've got, digitally, floppies, trades, library editions. It's kind of like just, and there's always something extra or something new in there. American Flag, again, floppies, trade. I mean, I didn't get the deluxe bind up, but I got it digitally as well. But Daisy stole that off me, which that's when, when certain favourites get picked up like that, it's like, oh yeah, I did reread, I think it was just the first issue, but I'm really going to have to, I know when I do it, I'm doing the lot. So that's going to be about the first 24, I think 25 issues. And but the one I did reread was Strange Science Fantasy, the Scott Morse, which was a real joy to revisit. It's such a real inky, pulpy, direct, sort of quite brutal, simple, dynamic sort of storytelling, mostly letterboxed landscape panels, quite cinematic, bit kind of like New Frontier was with Darwin Cook. But so that was really enjoyable. I think, we tried to do our best with some of the choices to not, to really break up and come up with something that was a little bit different and show the breadth of the genre, didn't it? Really, which I think we've done that most of the time.
I think so. I just realised I said Kirby before. I meant Eisner's Last Day in Vietnam. That was the best thing I came across during research. I'd read it before, but it was just like, just sit down and read it. And like, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Every now and then you just hit perfection, don't you?
Yeah.
But again, I loved rereading Charlie's War as well. That was... Yeah.
I got Last Day in Vietnam as part of a humble bundle, Eisner Kirby.
Right, okay.
And it pretty much was everything that's... everything Eisner had done, bar the Spirit. So a lot of his autobiographical stuff was in there. It had Last Day in Vietnam, and I think it had the Tenement, and a lot of his dramatic stuff. Kirby, he was up and down. So there was early romance stories, and then there was some of his later, I think Silver Star and stuff like that. Some of the stuff he was doing for Pacific. So it wasn't quite as perhaps the best stuff like the Eisner was, but yeah, you just start reading that story and you just get pulled in, don't you? It's amazing.
Next up was Fantasy versus Adult. Okay, it was the way this was drawn, but I think we always knew fantasy had to go through. But I just remembered. Yeah, I mean, I ended up. I had to put my hand on my heart and say these are my favourite fantasy, and I think they'll appeal to anyone because of that. And I ended up choosing 4 of the 5 I've already done entire episodes of. So that was again another one of these on the website. I think we put up some show notes, didn't we? And I had links to all the previous Comic Art podcasts where I've actually done a Conan 101, a Slania 101, a Rat Queens 101, a Monstrous 101, and the only one I hadn't done before was Mouse Guard, and I will be doing an episode about Mouse Guard because it's just wonderful in every way. Adult as well. You made me laugh with Atomic Hercules because I looked that up after. I was kind of aware of the Kickstarter. I didn't really know a lot about it, but I am going to get a copy of that actually.
Oh, definitely.
That made me chortle. What else did you have? You had Cerebus, which I've obviously read an awful lot of.
It was Sunstone, which was a suggestion from you.
It was, yes.
That's acceptable. That's fair. Because I did read, that was something I read. I was able to pick up, I think, the first 3, was it? I was able to find there. Black Kiss was the shaking.
Yeah.
There's got to be a shaking in there, isn't there? Yeah, Atomic Hercules, Cerebus High Society in particular, because that's when it really gets a little more satirical, political, and The Sandman, which you knocked out of the park with Conan, if I remember right.
Yeah, I know. Which again, it's like I felt horrible doing that.
Yeah, you see, that was tough.
Card, though.
That was tougher on you than it was on me. I had no problem. It was like, yeah, absolutely. I could draw that tomorrow. Conan taking on the Sandman. Yeah.
That gutted me a bit, but we did have we had a bit of feedback, didn't we, about war and sci-fi. What was the quote I had from? No, I've lost it now. Oh, that's right. There was a draw on, what would it be? Commando versus. I can't remember which one now. But I was accused of bringing a bomb to a night fight with my Eisner.
That's right.
Sound like that quote. I mean, I'd have loved to have picked up sci-fi as well. I enjoyed doing war, but sci-fi would have given me a reason to just drone on about French soap opera, space opera titles, which I absolutely adore. And your old sort of, even your old versions that your John Carter stuff. There's an awful lot of that kind of stuff, old and new. But I would say probably about 60-70% of what I read is actually like straight sci-fi now.
Right.
Of what I pick up to read. I'm in a bit of a sci-fi buzz at the moment, but I think with something that big, you had to approach it like you did and just seriously pick out little slithers in the whole history of. I think it was a tough one there.
Yeah, no, I think we did all right.
So, war and sci-fi, fantasy and adult. What was after that? Was that zombie and drama next?
Zombie drama. This is the one we had to do in 2 halves, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
The last 2 were zombie and drama and comedy versus superhero, and we didn't quite realise how long both of them were going to be. I think we did a full episode on zombie versus drama, and then we did an absolutely server-busting episode on comedy versus superhero, which...
Let's be honest, the server-busting was on superhero, mate. I was quite brief on the comedy front.
Well, I mean, what can you do? But I think probably, and as I mentioned on the interview, and drama was a real interesting one, and it did make me examine a genre that I'd perhaps underestimated. I mean, I had loads of, I think, examples of it, and I was a big fan of it without necessarily realizing. But I mean, I put forward a contract with God, Love and Rockets, Nick Prolix's slang pictorial Day Tripper, and Hicksville. I reread Hicksville, Dylan Horrocks' story, which I don't know, in hindsight, perhaps, I don't know, it does. I think it is probably best in drama out of everything we did. But I really enjoyed rereading that, which was, I first became aware of that from understanding comics. And sometimes with comics, one leads to another comic. They mention a novel, you read the novel, and it cascades into different influences and different works. I read a good few issues of Day Tripper, which I'd forgotten was absolutely as good as it was. And I think drama perhaps stuck with me a the most out of a lot of these genres. I don't know if we're before or after the Skrawllordz interview, but I'm doing a dramatic story, so a story with no genre attributes for the project that we discuss. And I think partly due to really becoming enamored by a lot of these books, stripped clean of fantasy and science fiction and crime elements. It was really nice to read something that was compelling without those extra whizzy bits. So yeah, it really did. And I bought Strangers in Paradise. That was in a sale on Comixology. That had been mentioned, I think, in Reality as well, in Tom's feedback. But I picked it up mainly because of the dramatic, again, it being one of those elements and put forward as, if you like this. Once I started to look through various books, Strangers in Paradise keeps getting referred to. So I bought Strangers in Paradise. And by the same guy that I just mentioned, who wrote Holler, whose name is Jeremy Massey, I also bought a book called All My Ghosts, which is a longer form book than the Holler that he is a more autobiographical reality book. But All My Ghosts is a book about... It's almost as if the kid in Holler grew up and became the guy in All My Ghosts. So one is very much youthful and exuberant and all about what you enjoy, whereas All My Ghosts is about somebody at the end of their career. They've had when Joe Hale sells his family's newspaper business, the ghosts of his past begin to haunt the business and Joe himself. And yeah, it was really engaging, very direct, very easy to connect to, really. So I found myself being attracted to and picking up a lot of books that were of that ilk, mainly because of doing the research on dramatic books, really. So that was one of the
quite cool that doing this inspires you as a creator, sort of thing. I mean,
totally.
For me, all it does is it inspires me to read more comics, which to be honest, I don't need that anyway. But it's quite cool that it does get a result out of this. That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's what we can perhaps choose to investigate when we do start talking to pundits. You know, whether they're readers or creators, they're going to have perhaps a viewpoint on things they like to read, and they're also going to have a viewpoint on things that they like to write. And there'll be people that avoid things because they don't want to get in. As an artist, there are lots of things I don't want to write a story about because I don't want to draw them. That's not the case with a writer. You know, you're not really going to take that into account. It needs to have, 200 people riding cars with horses' legs. That's just, oh God, no, I don't want to do that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what things hold people, creators back or inspire them. So that's something I'm going to be interested in to find out. But zombie. Nothing's changed there, eh, Mike?
No. Okay. It's a niche genre, and yeah, I think everyone knows I'm into it. Of the feedback, Tom gave us some feedback on this one again. I must have. I got down to 5, but I lost count of how many different titles I referenced whilst I was giving a history of zombie genre. And he came back and he immediately mentioned, he mentioned 3, 2 of which I had notes on, and I thought, no, brevity. This is the episode, by the way, which was like the longest ever. So I thought, brevity, no. So he mentioned zombie, as in zombie with an X. He mentioned Afterlife with Archie. And that was an important title, actually, because it not only made zombies mainstream, when you got them in a title like Archie, but it also signalled the death of the comic authority, the Comic Code Authority.
Yeah,
as well,
the last.
When you actually got a specific banned monster within Archie, for God's sake. So yeah, it was a bit of an epic one for me. But again, stuff I've rattled on about many times before when I do my own little segment for the podcast. So I know I cheated with Another Day in the Office because that's a BPRD title and you have to obviously vote for Mignola no matter what. So I put a few of those in. So again, I'm not. I put down 68 as well, which is a superb Vietnam zombie series. And funnily enough, I suddenly got a follow from George Lennox from Cult Empire Comics, who's shortly actually doing a Vietnam zombie Holocaust graphic novel on Kickstarter. So yeah, I'll go for that. So I kind of folded back and said, yep, you got my attention. So who knows, I might actually see and get an interview with him. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the one I didn't even bother picking up a book to read about.
Yeah.
A little bit, I wanted to fill in bits of the history, I suppose, but actually when it came to the titles, the first time I kind of knew exactly what I was gonna say. And then I guess we come to the big one, which was comedy versus superhero. And I genuinely believe I was quite quick with comedy because I knew we'd need the time to do superhero. How do you discuss the superhero genre? And I'll tell you what, you did a superb job by really defining the eras in a way that made it make more sense to me, actually. And I think that episode stands up, your bit, as a reference. If you really want to understand superhero comics and all these different things that whenever you read articles from people who know what they're talking about, I think this really, the way you put it really helps you sort of put it in perspective. It's a good little reference episode, that. I did like it.
I think, yeah, when you... I tried to put in, when I remembered, the touch points of the times. So to think of, the golden age being... what was it, 38 to 50? 55. Yeah, 55. And you think of what's going on in that period, world wars and changes in society. And then you've got the big 60s growth, and then you've got that kind of, it's not a contraction from the end of the 60s, but once that really explosive 60s thing happens, then there's a real divide between that Silver Age 60s and the Bronze Age 70s. And I didn't pick up on it at all, I don't think, when I was reading comics. I didn't think that, Luke Cage Power Man was that different from, an issue of 60s Fantastic Four. It all seemed to fit together.
Yeah.
But a lot of them were read, they were old material read, out of its place in time kind of thing. But yeah, it did take the longest one to do, but obviously there was more to do, because even though comics is not a genre, it's a medium, and even though that superheroes are a strange Frankenstein genre in themselves, that they are actually bolted together bits of pretty much every other genre. You know, that you've got sci-fi and fantasy, and at no point can you add anything to a superhero story that actually stops it being a superhero story. It's a very strange thing. But I think that's partly why it's so sort of sticky in terms of genre, that's why it's become so, you know, all-encompassing.
Yeah.
In terms of comics. I did really enjoy it. I did do a lot of rereading. I reread Planetary, which was an absolute joy. I reread Adam Warlock a fair bit. I do go back and do that, but I'd had an earlier reread quite close to that. I read 1963, which was that slightly kooky Image title from Alan Moore and a lot of his cronies. That's got it's a great pastiche and homage to those early Marvel days that he did. So I really enjoyed rereading that. And then, because I'd done Planetary, there's always in the back of my mind, you know, I always remember being absolutely blown away by Grant Morrison's run on Batman. Interestingly enough, when I came to reread it, it held up, but there were some bits I found myself getting impatient to sort of get past. I loved the Adam Randy, the first run, Batman and Son. The artwork's gorgeous. It sets itself up at such a pace. And then it's followed with the Black Glove and J.H. Williams, which is fantastic. And then Batman R.I.P. But then there's a bit, I don't know, I think Final Crisis, I had a bit of a problem with it. If I'd have reread that at the beginning of doing the superhero thing, I'd have had a bit more to say about superhero comics that are a little too overblown, I think, and have got a little too... not above themselves, but I had a, you know what I mean? I had a hard time. I did have a hard time, and there was a bit in the middle, and I was really getting a little tired before Batman Incorporated came back with some of Yannick Paquette's artwork, and they bring in the International Batman like Gaucho and the Hood, and suddenly then it's back up to speed again, and it's a little more dramatic. So I was interested to see, you could probably do an episode just on Morrison's Batman and the highs and lows and the different things that it reflects in itself. But it was interesting to do that after having done a thing on the whole sort of superhero genre. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Some of the feedback I think from the superhero is one thing I would agree with actually, but they're too specific and they're too modern, I think, for what you needed to do for the episode. But there was mentions of things like Zenith and things like The Boys and even Watchmen, which are kind of like meta superhero, aren't they? Because they're self-referencing a little bit. It's almost. I
don't mind the self-reference.
It's the superhero genre, but it's not real.
Well, they are superheroes. I think Watchmen totally superheroes, and I think anybody there's a thing that happened later on in superheroes where instead of them having a very obvious costume and a very obvious name, they had a slightly less obvious costume and a slightly less obvious name.
Yeah.
In Planetary, they do that, and that's when people like Jenny Sparks and Chiquita, Chiquita Wagner, and they start having ordinary names, and their costumes are kind of implied superhero, but they're not really not. They're still totally superheroes. They're just superheroes of that ilk of, Luke Cage again, or people like that. But I think I've not read a lot of The Boys. I've read all of martial law. I think love martial law and Kev O'Neill. That sits very much in. There's two very different things in a very similar genre. One much more satirical. It's like Judge Dredd to the max, really, isn't it? I think I might have mentioned Miracle Man. I haven't read Zenith, and for a long time it was very difficult to get. I remember looking for it when I was
very easy to get now, luckily.
Yeah.
So I did actually keep Zenith.
Yeah.
In Backprogs. I reread it, and it's one of those things so long ago. There's bits of it I appreciate more. There's some of it which is a little bit dated, and there's references at the time, like kind of half of them I remembered. It's got a lot of cultural references at the time. I think there's they reference things like Patsy Kensit. Yeah, okay, you can remember that. And then The Hitman and Her, I think, gets referenced, which is very niche and very of the time. It's well worth a read. It is good.
Yeah, I do need to pick up that. I did read Invincible, but to be honest, I had a mate who absolutely loved Invincible, so I think I lent most of them off him. But the art was great, and I could see, I could see what was going on, but that had a kind of, it seemed to me to have a kind of arch knowingness about it that didn't necessarily appeal to me. I think sometimes it was dealing with, turning certain tropes on its head, or so I think it was a particular choice not to mention some of these things, partly because I really didn't have the experience or much to say, but they're all completely, integral to this, really strange, mixed up, crazy, patchwork genre.
Genre, yeah.
Really, when we talk about how you decide what one thing is and what one thing isn't, that a lot of the time, when it comes down to sometimes just that they have a costume, that in itself is quite strange, because
it is, yeah.
Zorro would probably still get put in a Western category, or I don't know what, historical or swashbuckling, but not superhero. Whereas Hawkeye is a superhero.
Yeah.
No powers, primary, great with a weapon, and yeah, it's a weird thing about genres, the way that they get decided upon. Really, it's weird.
I think you had broadly positive feedback anyway. I got dragged over the coals with not mentioning comic strips in comedy. You know what? I'm not into that anymore. I don't know. I used to really enjoy Dilbert, but as a software developer, it stopped being funny when that became my life, and it wasn't funny anymore. It was just observation. Yeah, and just a quick one about you saying about, is it superhero or not? New one on Netflix. We need to get sponsored by Netflix, by the way. I keep mentioning it too much. Freaks is a film that's just on, which is basically, in a nutshell, what would happen if the X-Men happened in real life.
Oh, yeah.
People suddenly started having powers. It's a neat little film. Definitely would. Yes.
Isn't that what would really happen if people got powers?
In Britain, yes. Yes, absolutely. That is what would happen in Britain. But this is quite scary, actually. And it does centre around a little girl, and boy, is she actually an amazing actor. Not kid actors can be very, but It's superb film, actually.
Oh, no.
I really enjoyed it, but it's brand new on Netflix this week, so.
Cool. Oh, we always need stuff like that. That's brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
Nice one.
But for the rest of my comedy choices, I did actually reread all of those because I just haven't read comedy for a while. So I had to go back and reread. Obviously, you couldn't go back and reread 70 years' worth of superhero. But I actually managed to do mine in an afternoon, so... and again, I suddenly realised afterwards, I think comedy is a bit personal, isn't it? It's very much a taste thing.
Well,
if it's not your sense of humour, you're not going to...
That's going to be the interesting thing when we start talking to other people now, isn't it?
It is.
We've done this sort of very broad coverage of everything, and we've tried to help by discarding some. Sorry, Western. But now we're going to be able to get into this discussion of what is it about certain genres, and whoever we talk to, they're either going to be probably, really into it, or not a big fan.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You probably you might be a bit indifferent, but it's going to be interesting that there probably are some people out there who just don't read zombie comics.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an interesting conversation to see what turned them off these things just as much as what turned them.
That's a good point, actually. That's probably worth a grilling over, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you really don't like something, why?
Yeah. Is there
something that would change your mind?
Yeah, that is going to be interesting because obviously we've shown our our preferences quite clearly in some areas, and that's why we won't be discussing sports comics ever again. But it's going to be, it will be interesting to find out. There are probably those people whose idea of a good comic read, it doesn't involve a long-haired bloke in a fur nappy and a massive sword.
True. They're idiots, but yeah, true.
What do they know?
My overall synopsis of this entire experiment so far is Love and Rocket got mentioned 3 times during penalty shootouts, and more times than that when talking around the subject. Isn't that something? Is that just us?
3 times.
3 times in total in the top 5. So you had it in drama, had it in sport, and I had it in romance.
Do you know, when I did go back, I was quite relieved. At one point when we were doing it, I did start to think that I'd probably chosen things more shoot-offs than I'd realised. But yes, that makes sense. So Love and Rockets. And again, when you look at the kind of stories that they've both explored, or 3 brothers to be technical with the first genre, but you have got science fiction in there, you've got drama, you've got romance, there's a certain element of horror in certainly Beto's Palomar, some of the pretty grim stuff explored in that, and superheroes and comedy.
I think it's kind of a bit of a unique. It's kind of a bit of a unique work, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't realise just how unique it's coming out when we've actually delved into all the different genres. And how many times I left it out of stuff. Because I did consider it for comedy, actually.
Yeah.
Because there are some really good laugh out moments in it.
Yeah.
An interesting one.
No, it's a good conclusion. I mean, to be honest, if you had to have one standard bearer of a work that you could offer to most people as a real high point of comics,
to non-comic readers, even
to anyone, comic readers or non-comic readers. I mean, Love and Rockets, I think really stands up. Well, that's a good conclusion.
It is. Law and Rock is always a good conclusion, if you learn nothing else. So really the quarterfinals are all about, hopefully, pundits bringing some unique stuff or adding to a good reason to be into a genre. Yeah. And it'd be interesting to see what listeners actually vote as well.
Yeah.
As to what's out there.
It's a bit of both, isn't it? It's a further examination, getting another voice in, because one thing I think that has really helped us is the feedback.
Yeah.
It would be really good if we do encourage listeners to send us favourite examples. So we are going to be doing crime versus romance.
That's the next one.
So if you have got favourite stories that fit into those genres, please send them in, and we can add that into the mix with the pundit and,
absolutely
get some sort of reactions going.
Cool.
I think we've done it, Mike.
I think we have.
We finished the first round.
Hooray! We're hoping for shorter, punchier episodes going forward. Maybe we shouldn't drink whilst we're doing episodes as well. Or drink less, who knows.
I don't think I can commit to that. Right. Awesome. Well, thank you once again, Mindless One, for, if you have managed to stay with us this far, we have completed the first round of the Genre World Cup, and we will be moving on to the quarterfinals.
Next episode. Look forward to it, mate.
Nice one. All right. Cheers, everyone. See you soon. Bye.
Next time.
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Find out more about the show and how to contact us at comicartpodcast.uk. Find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Music composed by Pop Noir.
This podcast is part of Britpod Scene, an independent network of uniquely British podcasts that's always growing. Check out BritpodScene.com or Britpod Scene on Twitter to find out more.